Hi friends, so this cold process recipe makes a bar of soap that is great for prepping the skin prior to shaving. The addition of pumice powder helps to gently buff away dead skin that could clog and dull your razor, preventing you from getting a nice close shave. So my husband really loves using these bars on his face as like a pre-shave prep step, particularly after like a long weekend of not shaving. And I absolutely love lathering up with these on my legs prior to shaving. Because this soap is for prepping the skin, I've formulated this recipe to be lower in cleansing and higher in conditioning. So to do this, I've reduced my percentage of coconut oil, since coconut oil's wonderful skin cleansing properties can sometimes be a tad drying in higher usage rates for some skin types. And I've increased the percentage of lard for a more creamy conditioning feel. If you'd like to make this recipe vegan friendly, you can substitute the lard for sustainable palm oil instead and omit the Tussa silk. Along with lower cleansing and higher conditioning, this recipe also features a higher super fat of 7% for more free-floating oils within the bar, and the addition of aloe juice, raw cane sugar, Tussa silk, kaolin clay, olive oil, avocado oil, and castor oil just make for an all-around great bar of soap. In recently asking my wonderful fellow crafters for suggestions of things they'd like to see in future videos and getting some really awesome ideas in response, thank you so much, you guys. I'll also be incorporating the Clyde slide into our design today, and I'll be using Nature's Fragrance Aladdin's Wish fragrance oil. It's a absolutely beautiful unisex scent. It behaves perfect in cold processed soap, and it smells both fresh and exotic to my nose. It has notes of orange, bergamot, and tea leaves, accentuated by geranium, violet, woods, and musk, and it's perfect for this project. So let's get started on making some soap, and pause here if you'd like to copy down that recipe that I'll be using today, because I'm going to pop that up right here. But otherwise, let's get to making some soap. Alright, so for this recipe I like to use aloe juice in place of distilled water, and in the aloe juice I have already dissolved raw cane sugar. So for this recipe, if you want to use the raw cane sugar in your lye solution, you would just dissolve 1/2 teaspoon per pound of oils directly into the aloe juice and just stir it in really well and make sure that the sugar fully dissolves, and that will add some beautiful lather to your soap. So from here, I am also going to be adding some Tussa silk. And for those who have maybe never used Tussa silk before and are interested in trying it in a recipe at home, I just wanted to show you how I go about adding the Tussa silk and how much I use, because when I first started using Tussa silk in my own recipes, there really wasn't like a clear-cut answer as to exactly how much to add to one's recipes. So here is the Tussa silk that I purchased. It is humanely harvested, cruelty-free Tussa silk. And what I like to do for a batch of this size, and this is a 2-pound batch or 32 ounces of base oils, is I like to use about the size of a small cotton ball. So you just take it like so, grab my scissors, cut off the amount that you need. So I'll show the camera so you can see. So for a batch of this size, about the size of a small cotton ball, one of the miniature ones, not the big ones. And then from there, to make it easier, because you need all of these Tussa silk fibers to dissolve in your lye solution, what I like to do to help that along is to take those Tussa silk fibers and just break them apart as I add them to the aloe juice, and just pull those fibers apart as much as possible. And that will help them to dissolve faster once you add the lye. And the tussa silk does kind of exactly what you would imagine. It just adds such a beautiful, sustainable lather to your soap, and a very silky lather as well. So that's what it looks like when you add it to your liquid. So from there, you can add your lye and get that dissolved. So I'll do that now and show you. So I've got my lye all weighed out. This recipe is super fatted at 7% for some extra free-floating oils within the bar to give it a little bit more of a conditioning feel. And then we'll just add our lye to our aloe sugar tussa silk blend right here. Just carefully add this in. And then once you've incorporated the lye, you're just going to stir very, very well. You want to make sure that all of the lye is completely dissolved, and you want to make sure that all of those tussa silk fibers are completely dissolved as well. So this will take a little bit longer and require a little more patience when it comes to stirring, but just keep stirring and stirring and stirring, and eventually all those tussa silk fibers will dissolve and it'll be good to go. So I will bring you back when all those fibers have fully dissolved and show you what it looks like. All right, so I have just continued to stir. All of the lye is now completely dissolved, as well as all those tussa silk fibers. And a lot of soap makers, especially when using tussa silk, will also choose to strain their lye when they add the lye to the base oils, just to make sure that no undissolved little bits of tussa silk get in there. So if you choose to do that, that is absolutely fine as well. So from here on out though, I need to get this lye solution cooled down to about 80 degrees, between 80 degrees to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to get my base oils ready, and I will bring you back when it's time to get everything going. So I'll see you guys back. I wanted to quickly also, before I get too ahead of myself, I wanted to share how I make my kaolin clay slurries when it comes to using kaolin clay in cold process soap for its skin loving goodness, as well as a fixative for your fragrance oils. Whether or not my fragrance oils need a fixative or not, I always add kaolin clay, just because it is so skin loving anyway, and it also, even of the best fragrance oils, it just really gives it that extra oomph to be as long lasting and as beautiful as it possibly can be in your soap. So it's a really great, inexpensive way to add some nice skin loving properties to your soap, as well as get the very most out of those wonderful fragrance oils. So what I do is I've got 2 ounces of my fragrance right here. So for every ounce of fragrance oil that I use, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of kaolin clay directly to it. So I've got my little measuring spoon here. And here's 1 teaspoon. And 2 teaspoons. And these are generous teaspoons too, because kaolin clay is just good stuff. It's definitely not going to hurt your soap to have a little bit more in there. So once I've added it to my fragrance oil, I'm just going to take my mini mixer here and I'm going to blend that in, or I'm not going to turn the mini mixer on before I get it in there, that's for sure. I'm going to mini mix this. I'm going to mix it up really, really well into my fragrance oil. All right. So now the clay has been blended into the fragrance oil. Now the clay is heavier than the oil, so eventually it will begin to settle down at the bottom. That's no problem at all. You can always just come back and hit it with your mini mixer again, and it'll be absolutely fine. You can even make your kaolin clay slurry 18 hours, 24 hours even in advance before you make your soap, and that will give the clay just plenty of time to soak up as much of that fragrance oil as possible. So Like I said, just a nice inexpensive way to add some nice skin loving goodness to your soap and get the most out of your fragrances. So I'm going to set this aside and I'll get my oils ready for my main batch. All right, so my soap making oils and my lye solution have now both cooled down to room temp. Today in my house, that's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And so from here, let's get to making some soap. And with this particular recipe today, I'm using, it is a blend of 35% lard, 25% coconut oil, 20% olive oil, 10% avocado oil, and 10% castor oil, and we're super fatting at 7%. And my lye solution again is that aloe juice, raw cane sugar, Tussa silk blend. And from here I'm going to add my sodium lactate directly to my cooled lye solution. So I'm just going to stir the sodium lactate into my lye solution, and then I'll get this added to my base oils. Just going to stir for a little bit just to get that nice and incorporated. And then from here I am also going to add my pumice powder, and the amount that I'm using today is a ½ ounce per pound of oils. So I have weighed out 1 ounce of pumice powder, and that's what creates a nice sandy type of feel that will buff away all those dead skin cells off the surface of your skin. A lot of people also refer to this as mechanics soap because it is such a wonderful scrubby type exfoliant to add to your soaps. So I will get that slowly added in. I'm just going to dump a little bit in and then stir. And just keep continuing, adding a little bit in and stir. And just keep going until all the pumice has been added to the soap. So now I'm going to stick blend until we reach a light trace, and to also get that pumice powder really mixed in well into my soap. Alright, so when doing the Clyde slide pour in your soap, you want to work when your batter is relatively fluid. So I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to divide my batter into 3 portions. We're going to do 3 colors today for this. All right, so I've divided my soap batter into 3 equal-ish portions. So we'll get them colored now with our mica colorants. The first one that we'll do is this. It's called Crimson Red Wine Mica. It's dispersed in a little bit of olive oil. So get that blended into the first one. And our next color will be this White Satin Mica. So we'll get that blended in. And this last color is called Dark Navy Blue. So we'll get this blended into the last portion. All right, our colors are blended together, so it's time to get the fragrance oil blended into these as well. All right, so we've got the fragrance oil in there, we've got our colorants in there. Now it is time to do the Clyde slide. So what we're gonna do, let me set these off to the side, is we are going to pour these in a pattern down the side of this pot right here. So I'm gonna start with my first color, and I'm just gonna pour a little bit down the side. then do the same with the next color. And the same with the next. Okay, and then just repeat again. Just pouring it down the side in the same spot as the previous pour. Just keep going in this pattern until you run out of soap batter. And actually what I'm going to do is I am going to reserve a little bit of each color just to have something to decorate the top with, but the majority of it is going to go in this pot here and be turned into a Clyde slide. Okay, now once you've got your pattern poured down the side of the bowl, now it's time to pour. So I'll get my mold in here. Get this into view so you can see. And it is the actual process of pouring it into the mold that causes the colors to swirl and create that beautiful effect. So here we go. I'm just going to scrape out my bowl a little bit, try not to muddle up those colors too much, but just pour the remaining batter on top here. And leave some room for that reserved soap that I have as well. So I'm just going to kind of drizzle what I have remaining of my batter on top. This is smelling so good. This has such a beautiful tea note in this fragrance oil, and I am such a sucker for tea fragrances. And just to pretty it up a little bit, I'm going to take my little bamboo skewer here and just kind of swirl around the top and make it look pretty. All right, and there it is. We are all set. We've got our pre-shave pumice cold process soap in the Clyde slide pouring technique, and a little bit of swirlies on top just to pretty it up. I'm going to get this sprayed with some 91% rubbing alcohol that will help to prevent soda ash. And then from here, I actually really love a good batch of C-Pop. So I am going to get this in the oven at 170 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour, and then I'm going to turn off the heat and just let it continue to sit in there in the ambient heat of the oven. But if you are unfamiliar with C-Pop or you just prefer not to, at this point you would just insulate it and let it sit overnight, and yeah, we'll be back tomorrow to cut it open and see what it looks like. So I will see you guys back tomorrow for the cut. Well, we're back the next day to cut our pre-shave pumice soap scented in Aladdin's Wish fragrance oil from Nature's Fragrance. First of all, look how cool this is looking. I am loving that. Hopefully it looks just as cool on the inside as it's looking on the out, but the scent is absolutely beautiful today. I did C-pop this batch, and the fragrance oil just behaved beautifully through C-pop. Those beautiful tea leaf notes just really came out, and this is just such a lovely scent. So let's get this cut up and see what it looks like on the inside with our little Clyde slide design. All right, looking good. Let's get this baby cut. Ooh, took a little bit of elbow grease. Well, for reasons completely unknown, my mic decided to lag about 20 seconds behind and start cutting completely out every 2 seconds while I was filming the cut. So unfortunately, I had to refilm this so I could share how the soaps turned out. But with the Clyde slide technique, they really came out looking so awesome though. And this Aladdin's Wish fragrance oil smells absolutely beautiful in the soaps. The added pumice gives the soaps a nice, fine, gritty texture that will buff away dead skin. And the bar itself is just chock full of skin-loving goodness. So just really pleased with how these turned out. So I hope you all enjoyed watching this video and that you were able to find either something educational, inspiring, or entertaining about it. And if you would like to use Nature's Fragrance fantastic Aladdin's Wish fragrance oil in your own crafty creations, just head on over to www.naturesfragrance.com. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and happy crafting, everyone. We'll catch you all next time. Bye.